Okay, we just made it through malware prevention. We've got that under our belts. Now it's time to talk about something a little bit different in NSX Intelligence. Now, NSX Intelligence is a really spectacular tool, especially as we're starting to think about microsegmentation. We're going to talk about what we need to deploy this, how we're going to use it, what kinds of things we're going to look at for recommendations, for traffic analysis, all kinds of stuff. So NSX Intelligence is a distributed analytics solution, right? That's plain and simple. That's what it is. And it's ingesting flow data from our data plane, right? Directly from our data plane to be able to visualize, right? To give you the opportunity to visualize your traffic flows, who's talking to what and what ports and all that kind of stuff. It also gives us, because we have all of that flow data, we can see who's talking to who. We can analyze that data and figure out what kinds of firewall rules maybe need to be set. And then again, because we have all of that data in the first place, well, we can look at that and analyze and look for suspicious traffic patterns. So intelligence gives us a whole lot of visibility into our NSX network traffic is basically what we can distill this down to, right? How many different ways can we look at this flow data? So those are our three primary use cases today, and there are always more developing, right? NSX Intelligence is a big deal for us. So what do I need to deploy intelligence? Well, we need application platform to deploy intelligence, but we need the advanced form factor, right? We need that big form factor because we're making use of the analytics pods and the data storage pods that are deployed with the advanced form factor. Now we do need a valid NSX license, right? But intelligence comes with most of my NSX licenses, so that's okay. And then in order to start and stop data collection, right? In other words, to start sending data or stop sending data to intelligence, we have to be an enterprise administrator. Now, to deploy intelligence, it's pretty straightforward, right? Back under the NSX application platform UI, I have my big tile for NSX Intelligence, and I click that, and we get a little workflow that says, well, let's run these pre-checks, right? There's no off-premise cloud solution that goes with this, so I don't have to select a cloud. We're just going to run some pre-checks. When those pre-checks are good, we can then activate intelligence, and that will trigger NSX to deploy the NSX Intelligence pods onto application platform. Now, we can look at those pods in our NSXi platform, right? Cube control get pods -n NSXi platform, where we're specifying the namespace. We can describe individual pods inside that namespace. Remember, we can also look at the logs. These are going to be the application platform, or not the application platform, the intelligence logs in this case for different services, different pods inside that. So basic commands to remind us of how we're going to work with and do some basic troubleshooting in our Kubernetes cluster. Now, something that's new to NSX Intelligence is this idea of granular data collection. It used to be that when I enabled data collection for intelligence, it was collecting all of my data from all of my hypervisors, all of my hosts everywhere. Well, now we can turn this on a cluster by cluster basis, right? So you can look here, we only have one cluster, but if I had multiple clusters here, I would have a data collection toggle for each of them. So I can choose to bring in data for some clusters and maybe not bring in data for other clusters. That gives me a little bit of flexibility in how I'm building this and how I'm collecting data and what data I have. Maybe I don't want to do microsegmentation on these other clusters yet. So whatever it is I might want to do, I can enable and disable data collection on a cluster by cluster basis. I can use this to start visualizing my data. Once we have data rolling in, I can come into the Plan and Troubleshoot tab in the NSX UI. All right, and under that, I can go to Discover and Take Action, and that's going to give me immediately a visualization of my infrastructure. Now, depending on whatever it is that I have filtered out and whatever I choose to look at. But if I'm looking at everything, I'm going to get this big constellation style view with little lines indicating flows between clusters or individual virtual machines. I can filter that out however it is I need to filter that out, right? I can just look at blocked flows. I can just look at allowed flows. I can look at unprotected flows, which are flows that are matched by the default rule. I can filter out and I can look at only certain groups of virtual machines or only subsets of virtual machines. So we can go in and see what my environment's actually doing. We can select individual flow lines and get details about the flow data. What flows do we see? How many of them do we see? What's the flow volume? What are my sources? What are my destinations? What are my services? What data do we have about the flows? We can see all of them, so we're going to tell you pretty much everything about them. We can also move to the recommendations tab, and this is where we're going to do our microsegmentation planning, where we can start a new recommendation and start bringing together characteristics of some set of virtual machines, whether it's a bunch of individual virtual machines or one or two NSX groups. I can choose what virtual machines I want to look at, what data I want to analyze. I can choose the time, how far back do I want to look. Now, my time window, I certainly want intelligence to have been available and collecting data through all of that. If I select a last 30 days time window, then I certainly want intelligence to have been up for at least the last 30 days and collecting that data. Otherwise, I'll get incomplete recommendations. So we'll select the amount of time we want to look back. We will select whether we want an allow list or a deny list style policy. We can choose how much group reuse we want. In other words, as we create new group objects, do we want to reuse existing ones, or just do we want to create all new ones? This is a very handy feature for those that maybe have been using intelligence for a while. It's kind of been a sort of a downfall in a way. Because intelligence used to simply create new sets of groups for each recommendation. Well, now we can reuse groups, and we can define the threshold of how similar traffic flows have to be for one group to be reused. We can choose whether we want our rules to be built around groups or IP addresses, whether we want them to use layer 7 context profiles or just use layer 3-4 services. And we can choose to exclude say infrastructure traffic. So do we want to exclude things that are commonly considered shared services, right? LDAP and DNS and those kinds of things. We can detect that traffic and exclude that from our recommendations if you so desire. So we've got a lot of control over what data we're looking at, what data we're analyzing, so that we can go and build your microsegmentation recommendations. And we can go ahead and start this. There's a toggle here that says to turn on monitoring. We can monitor recommendations so that if the groups change, then we can sit back and say, okay, well, yeah, we've got this group change. Let's think about what happened here, and maybe maybe it's time to rerun the recommendation so that we can reanalyze the data. So we can toggle that on a recommendation by recommendation basis. Once we get our recommendations, we can review them. We can rename groups and rules and policies and things like that if we need to. We can change things. We can exclude rules or things from those recommendations, right? So we want to review the recommendations. And then we've got a one-click publish where we can publish this directly into the distributed firewall, so that once this is all done, we say, hey, this is good. We like this. Let's make it happen. And there's my firewall. So I've now microsegmented an application with a great degree of automation. Intelligence also provides us suspicious traffic detection. That's a mouthful. And what we're doing is gives us, we've got all this flow data, all these flows we're seeing from virtual machine to virtual machine. Well, is there anything suspicious in there? Let's take a look. And we can analyze this data and identify, are we seeing port scans? Are we seeing uncommonly used ports here? Are we seeing, suspicious traffic. Now, our suspicious traffic detection is only detection. It's only going to notify you. It's not going to actually block any of this traffic. So, we can come in and work with this. Now, we do have zero of these detectors enabled out of the box. You have to come in here to detector definitions under suspicious traffic in the UI and turn on the things that you want to look for. So you have to enable detectors one by one. But as we start enabling these detectors, as we start seeing suspicious traffic, we start seeing flows that match some kind of suspicious traffic, we can go look at those in the Events tab. And again, we've got a very familiar UI. We've got a time series plot chart and a tabular view of suspicious traffic events that we have notified or identified rather. And we can look at that and expand that out and see. And we'll tell you why it is we triggered this particular detector. We'll give you some details on what's going on, right? If it's a suspicious upload or download, right? Suspicious data transfer, we'll show you, hey, this is the normal, and this is how far in and out how far out of range for normal that is. Here we see a different view. We're giving you different information about why this particular detector was chosen. So, we'll tell you why we triggered that. And it's up to you administratively to go act on that if you think that's a problem, right? Again, suspicious traffic detection in NSX Intelligence is simply that. It's detection. It's a notification, and it's not going to actively do anything. So, intelligence, really cool stuff, right? Flow visualization, microsegmentation, and suspicious traffic detection. Really, really neat. If you come back and see us in the next video, we're going to talk about network detection and response. So another new cool capability in our advanced threat prevention portfolio. We'll see you there.